President Biden has made it clear that it's a lot of the same when it comes to China. He has no intention of changing any of those relationships that Mr. Trump made so acrimonious. In fact, the latest meeting that occurred on Friday of last week in Alaska was anything but a success. It was actually quite a failure. The Chinese and the Americans met for the first time under the Biden administration in Alaska, and it was incredibly controversial. The meeting did not end well. So for instance, today is Monday and everyone's trying to unpack how that meeting went. Well, a few things we can take away. One is hostilities continue to be the sort of top line of the relationship. And Mr. Biden has made it clear that he has no intention of removing any of the tariffs that are on China, and they continue to blame China for what they call overcapacity in the global steel market. Today, the Biden administration and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer do not believe that steel is a part of infrastructure. Now, that's going to sound insane. And it's because if you look at their recent proposal for what they call equitable infrastructure, they have items that focus on things that don't focus on the hardline things you and I think of when it comes to roads and railways and fixing, coastal apparatuses and bridges and all of the things that we think. We think infrastructure and we're like, yes, this is great for the steel industry. Everything I'm seeing from the LIFT Act, and even with some of these other proposals that are coming from other members, they have something called family infrastructure. That's a part of the infrastructure package.
This chart shows data from the IMF World Economic Outlook, and it is economic output and what their estimate of 2020 and then their projections for 21 and 22. And what you see here is the U.S. is in the left-hand panel is the fourth highest on the list. So we turn to American steel. And this is probably not a surprising chart for those of you in the industry, but a lot of American steel is consumed in construction and automotive, and then machinery, energy, appliances, and other industries also have consumption. Every segment went down. First of all, most of the segments went down about 10%, but automotive and other transport down closer to 30%. And the other transport near and dear to my heart because my aerospace is tucked away in there. For those segments that went down about 10%, most of them end the year at down 2 or 3%. So pretty good recovery there. My other transport comes up to down 18% versus end of 2019, but automotive makes a significant turnaround in the second half of last year. If we look at the building and infrastructure, the construction market, which segments into residential buildings, non-residential buildings, and then non-building, as we've seen, the residential side has been very strong and a lot of activity there. But on the non-residential side, we see weakness.
Hot roll prices, steel prices in the United States and other parts of the world, specifically talk about the United States, are at the record high prices. And you can see in this chart, pretty much 2018 when Section 232 was implemented, an increase in prices. However, you see toward the right side, this significant increase in challenges related to steel pricing in the United States. One thing's really contributing to this, really you look at the bottom right, you'll see inventory levels, service center inventory levels are historic lows, continue to be that way. You can see ASI steel capacity utilization rate, and on the flip side to the daily HRC price in the white line, as we see the capacity utilization increasing closer toward the 80%, we're continuing to see pricing doing an opposite. It really continues to climb, not go down. So that shows the really demand recovery that's been taking place. I do not believe it was pent-up demand from COVID. We've continued to see that month over month over month increases in demand, and consumers, even with elevated high prices, we are not having any problems with currently at this point with our customers paying the higher prices for us to be profitable. There's no imports to back up the lack of supply to meet the current demand in the United States. So, we are seeing imports again, like I said, start to rise a little, but there's not enough to solve our problems and our challenges. And with that, futures continue to rise. And you look at a month ago where we were, the orange line, now we are at the white and climbing. You continue to see more and more in the out months shoring up of pricing in the futures market. As at the end of the day, like I was saying, the supply is just not there to meet our needs.
Today, the mini mills account for over 65% of production, with integrated mills on a very low percentage of 28-30%, I would say. And when you take long products, especially, I think all the integrated mills in USA are more or less out of it, like Cliffs, AK, ArcelorMittal, who constitute Chris today. US Steel, none of them produce long products, and long products are entirely in the mini mill sector. Mini mills have been successful because of their production model, very low cost model. But when it comes to really employees, the employees are happier working at mini mills as compared to their counterparts in integrated. The mini mills, especially Nucor, SDI, they are union free, and they have done that because they manage their employees on a more, let's say, on a closer note, and there's no union in between. And the fact is, they do not retrench their employees even when there is a downturn. They keep them on, they give them all kinds of work, maintenance, painting, etc., but keep them on roll. This is, of course, facilitated by the fact that the variable component of their pay is perhaps more than the fixed component. So when there is a downturn or a lower production, the wages do go down, but they still have a job, whereas integrators do not have the flexibility.
On the trade piece with China, I think it's really too early to tell who's going to win. I think that this sort of détente or Cold War will continue, and it's going to be a policy of accountability. It's not going to be about winners or losers in a zero-sum game. It's going to be about how do we keep each other accountable. And China's going to want to keep the US accountable to not interfering in what they do, point blank. That's how China's going to keep the US accountable. And the US is going to keep China accountable by saying, fine, we won't get too involved in your politics, although we might do it through other political entities and trade associations and interest groups, and we don't have fingerprints on it.
I think that, that's 232 does, in essence, eliminate some countries from importing. However, the challenge, it's become bigger than 232. Honestly, it's a global supply issue, and we talk about world steel production. It's way oversupplied. I think what we're experiencing right now, experiencing this year, is the supply is very low, and everyone's having problems getting caught back up, and that's going to continue.
But there's a huge mix change inside there, especially with continuing problems or challenges in long haul travel. So that greatly changes the mix of materials that are being consumed. Steel and actually aluminum, because of the mix of aircraft that are being built, favors steel and aluminum right now versus composites and some other ones.